How's everybody doing? Thank you. Really appreciate being here tonight. Of course, I want to thank the GRAMMY Museum for hosting this cool little sit down with one of my favorite artists in the world. I got introduced to his music in a unique way. I had a best friend, well, I got a best friend named Ronnie Smith. I used to always, as a youngster, always up and down at his house. And he had a brother named Robert Smith. Robert was just kind of like one of the brothers on the block, one of the big brothers on the block who never cared about what age you were. You know what I mean? He would just push shit on you and show you shit that you was probably too young to see. And I remember his room was extremely dark. He had velvet posters, black women on Panthers with, Pam Grier. So I used to love to go in his room and look at the wall. It always smelled funny, but it smelled like the same shit my brother's room smelled like sometimes. So he was always in there smoking and rolling something up, and he was always playing Bootsy. And I fell in love with the music. Really wanted to steal that album, that album cover he had with the glasses in it. I was plotting to steal that. Never got my hands on those glasses, but became a Bootsy fan that day. And, to get a chance to meet him one day was something I had never fathomed. And, fortunately got into music, had a chance to actually meet Bootsy for the first time. And it was like a dream come true because he's just as cool as you think he is. You know what I mean? He's just as smooth, a real nice guy, and, just a superstar. And I admire him so much. So enough of me talking. I'd like to bring him to the stage. Y'all put your hands together for Bootsy Collins. The one and only. Wow. Man. You want to say a few words to the people first before we get started?
Yeah, I think you said enough. You said enough with the black room. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I became a fan, fell in love with your style. And of course the music. I mean, the music is, hypnotizing.
Yeah.
And so, I don't want to jump the gun here. You was born
Cincinnati,
Ohio. 1951.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. October 26th?
Yeah.
There we are.
See how you got that right? You got all that right, and I messed it up the other day. Man.
What you mean?
Well, they was posting your birthday, and I seen it in my feed. And I was like, dag, I almost missed Ice Cube's birthday. And you had such a great picture there. I said, well, I'm going to post it. And I posted it, and then you hit me back and said, that was last year. And I was like, oh, man.
I said, a little early, big bro. My birthday is June 15th.
Right.
But I'm still accepting presents today.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's what killed me. That killed me.
So you got me what you got me last year, which was nothing. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Right.
It still fit.
Right.
Yeah. So
Oh man.
So, how was your childhood, man? You know, growing up.
Well, growing up, like, in the neighborhood, if you got on some funny colors, some cheap gym shoes, everybody laughed at you,
Yeah.
and so I decided early on that how do I turn this laughter into something positive that makes me feel like I'm doing something?
Yeah.
We carrying the welfare bags, you know, people laughed at me and they were carrying welfare bags too, you know.
Yeah.
So it kind of hurried up the progress of me learning how to take the laughter and keep stepping, and that's what I did. I learned how to take the laughter real early, and I turned it around. And I didn't laugh at people, but I did step my game up, and I started to understand that I can put on anything because they're used to me dressing all weird. So when I got a chance to make a few dollars, I started dressing the way I wanted to dress, and they stopped laughing.
Yeah.
And when they stopped laughing, I was like, okay, I must be on to something. So I kept stepping my game up,
Yeah.
and feeling good. And didn't nobody have to tell me, oh man, that's cool. Didn't nobody have to tell me that. I started believing in myself. A lot of times we get rejected so much that, you fall under that hypnotic state, and you start to think about yourself. Funk don't think. Funk just is. It just
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
my favorite line is funk is making something out of nothing. And that's what
Beautiful.
we've been doing. That's what y'all did.
Yeah. We learned it from you. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
ain't no G funk without the P funk, baby.
But
Yeah.
you,
And
but
ain't no P funk without the B funk. Remember that. Okay, because one thing, I got to put out there,
yeah,
because you don't work with a lot of fabulous superstar artists.
yeah,
You know, when you got with James, he got a new kind of funk,
right,
right?
right, yeah,
And when you got with George, he got a new kind of funk,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And what I want to let everybody know is the new kind of funk is sitting right here. This is what they got. They got Bootsy Collins
Wow,
as a
wow,
part of their production, a part of their team, that spirit.
yeah,
One thing I always notice about you is you always have a good spirit. You're always positive. I
yeah.
don't know if you've ever seen Bootsy mad. Have we? Do you get mad, Bootsy?
The band members kind of seen me mad before.
Okay,
George have seen me mad. Don't nobody want to see me mad.
good,
I don't even want to see me mad.
good. We don't
Yeah,
want to see you mad
yeah.
either.
I don't.
But what makes you have that upbeat spirit all the time? Yeah, I mean, well, every time we
Q.
see you in public.
What I believe happened is my mother, whatever she had, transferred over into me, and she was my backbone. She was the love of my life. She was everything. And when I lost her, I didn't know what to do. I mean, I started just doing stuff because it was like a routine. But, I tried to get her to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That was the last, it was 1997. We got inducted and I wanted her to go, but she had this cancer that was eating her up. And I had to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and leave her, and that would be the last time that I seen her.
Wow.
And yeah, so I didn't mean that to be a downer, but at the same time, I had to get that out
Yeah.
because that pain, I've got to the point now that pain and love go together as one. You can't get one without the other. They both are there.
Yes.
And it's up to you to decide what you're gonna do with it.
That's real.
You know.
I lost my mother earlier this year.
Yeah.
So I understand
Yeah.
what you're talking about. And I've come to realize that, death is a part of life.
Exactly.
All of God's creatures only have a certain time. A certain season.
Yeah.
And then they have to go.
That's right.
To the next level.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll see them on that level.
I call it changing frequencies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the bass. What made you pick up the bass out of all the instruments to pick up? What made you pick up the bass?
It was my brother. I think you got a chance to meet Catfish, who was like 8 years older than I. He played guitar. He was in Parliament Funkadelic.
Yeah.
He was with James Brown. He was with me all the way through. He was the one because I didn't have a father in the house. So my brother, I looked up to him, and I wanted to be like him. They played in these rat hole clubs. I wanted to do all that, just like the room you was talking about. Those clubs was like that. And I loved it. I loved it. And all I wanted to do was play with my brother. So one night, he was calling his band, and his bass player couldn't make it. And I was like, duh. And I didn't even have a bass. I mean, I had a $29 guitar. Now I'm going to show you what funk is. I had a $29 guitar. I asked my brother, if you can give me 4 bass strings, I'm going to be your bass player. And he was, ain't nobody never seen me play bass. I ain't even never seen me play bass.
Wow.
But I wanted to step out, because I wanted to be with my brother. I would do anything. I'd play clarinet, flute, whatever, So he needed a bass player, got me 4 strings. I unwind the string because, you can't get that thick string through those little holes in the guitar. So I unwind all the 4 strings, got them on there, and I said, let's go. My brother was kind of scared because he was like, we ain't never played together, and he ain't never seen me play no bass.
Wow.
We made the gig. The gig was about as big as this stage right here, and all the people out here were right here on stage, and it was like this. I mean, that was for real. It was scary, but it was fun.
Yeah.
And we made it through it.
How old were you?
14.
14.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I looked like I was probably about 18, because I was tall. And Catfish had the reputation around Cincinnati of being the baddest guitar player.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that helped a lot.
Yeah. So you guys actually got pretty good. What was the name of the first group?
The first group was the Pacemakers.
Pacemakers.
Yeah.
What made you pick that name?
Well, we was set. I felt like we was gonna set pace.
Set the pace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, that again, a lot of times funk, not even a lot of times, most of the time funk don't let you know until you need to know.
Wow.
And I needed to know, and who's ever controlling that universal thing, let me in on it.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So you guys had got pretty good, obviously, because at some point James Brown came calling.
Yeah, well, what happened was Charles Sperling, who was an A&R guy at King Records, he had heard about us. He wanted to come hear us at the club. So we invited him to come down, to hear us. So he came down, he heard us. He was like, man, I got to get y'all over to King's studio. Y'all can play for all these different artists. that's on King, and we didn't know nothing about recording in the studio, but we had a vibe. We had this electric thing that was going on. It was new, and it felt new, and we knew that we were bad. We were cocky kid. You was one of them, and you still are, and you still are.
Yeah, I'm a little, I'm a little jack in the box every now and then. You know what I mean? But,
well, that was the vibe, and the whole band had that vibe.
yeah.
So it was like, we went over there and started recording. We started learning how to record. We started learning how to accommodate people. In other words, serve the artist. And that's a thing that we had to learn as musicians to get gigs. You had to learn how to listen, as opposed to come in, okay, this is what we're going to do. That didn't come until later, after all the sacrifices and, things you go through on, recording with people, know. So, we would listen to what they wanted, and then you would say, okay, how about this? Because I was always wanting to come up with, my own thing.
Yeah.
And when I played something, they were like, dang, that sounds better than what I was thinking of. So, and to me, that was the idea. That was the whole idea. And once I jumped in on that and it started rolling, Catfish started rolling with it. We even had a string section, a whole orchestra. I never will forget this. His name was Dave Matthews. He was James Brown. What do you call that? Director? Conductor. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because we from the LA Unified School District. At least I am. Wait a minute. Wait. Orchestra man.
Think about that. Think about that.
But go ahead.
Yeah, but the conductor, he was like, he was kind of like our friend, and he knew that we didn't know nothing about reading music.
Yes.
He knew it, but he also knew that we was killing them in the recording. So he wanted to infuse that into what he was writing and putting together for the orchestra. So, but we didn't know that at the time. So me and Catfish sit down like we doing now. The music stand in front of us. We didn't have a clue about what we were looking at as far as the music.
Yeah.
And so he would say, and the conductor knew we didn't know what we was doing. He just wanted to hear, So he counted off, 1, 2, 3, and the whole orchestra would strike it up. Me and Cat would sit there like, turn the page.
Yeah.
We did that for about 3 or 4 times. Once we locked into what they doing, then we lit it up.
Yeah.
And that, if you listen to, what's the one? Summertime? Is it Summertime? Sunny. Listen to Sunny by James Brown, and you'll understand what Dave Matthews heard when we struck it up.
Yeah.
Because that was actually the recording we did.
Wow.
That came out on the original Sunny.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, how terrifying was it to get on stage with James Brown for the first time and actually be his backup band?
Well, it really wasn't terrifying. It was, you have to come up with another word. It was
horrifying?
Horrifying. That's it. We didn't know what we was doing, but again, there's funk.
Funk.
In every situation, we found funk, because the situation was so funky that we didn't know what we was doing.
Yeah.
And actually we didn't know why he picked us. We don't know why are we here because he wanted us to come play. We thought he wanted us to open the show for him. Nobody told us he wanted us to be the band.
Oh.
See, Bobby Bird was his sidekick. He was the one that came to Cincinnati, got us in James Learjet. Man, we riding in James Brown Learjet. I mean, we were so stoked on that. The next thing I know, we in 40,000 feet in the air with afros flying. That was the most beautiful trip, But when we landed was when we started thinking about, oh man, what we gonna do? We found out that James wants y'all to play behind him, and do the show. Do the show. We don't even know what the show is,
Wow.
So all that, piled up on us, and when we get into the dressing room with Mr. Brown, it was like, let me tell you what I want y'all to do.
Uh-oh.
And then he gets like this. Look here. When I get up there and say cold sweat, I want you to, We say he wants you to, What that mean? Cold sweat. He said, oh, you mean hit you right there. Yeah, hit me. So he went to the stage. He said every song he called out, hit it. And that's what we did all night. Because we knew the songs, but we didn't know his arrangements of the song. So we was hired right on the spot.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah. And we was terrified.
Outside of Catfish, who were your musical heroes?
Bernie Worrell.
Yeah.
He was probably number one. Well, not even probably. He was number one. He just, like I mentioned to you about being a musician and being able to accompany whatever the artist wanted, he was number one. When I got there, I was so glad to see somebody was there that I could relate to without even talking, and it was Bernie. He knew how to accompany whatever rhythm or whatever it was that I brought. He knew how to accompany that. He would sit, listen. Once he heard it, he did the same thing we did with them strings, But the difference is Bernie knew how to read. He was like, well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, big fan of Bernie.
Yeah.
Anybody who's listened to any of your records could hear him all over those records. How did you meet George Clinton?
Dang on. Okay. We'll go back here a little bit.
I mean, I know people want to know this. But I want to know, how did you meet George Clinton?
Okay, so it started back in the Pacemakers day. This was before James Brown, before we got with James Brown. So, we had the Pacemakers featuring Phil Soul Walker, who actually became Felipe Wynn.
Yes.
With the Spinners, right?
Yes.
Okay, so once we went with James Brown, we had to disband the Pacemakers. So Phil Soul Walker, he started doing local gigs and doing things. And so once we left James, we came back to put the band back together, and we put Phil back in the band. He was still around Cincinnati. So we put him back in the band, and we decided, let's go to Detroit, because the Spinners had called me about being the backup band for them. And, I hadn't met George yet, but that was the ticket. I figured, like, okay, since we're going to Detroit, I'm going to look up George, because everybody been telling us, y'all sound like Funkadelic. Y'all look like Funkadelic. Y'all crazy as Funkadelic. I mean, so it was like, yeah, we gotta find George, because our whole motto was, let's take it to the stage. That was our whole thing about going around to gigs. We was into taking people's gigs. I know it sounds horrible, but that was the competition thing that we had going on, not only locally, the whole Ohio, that Midwest thing was coming in, got your instrument, go to the stage, and the band already know they gotta come off, and they call it sitting in, you know, and you come up and do your thing, and if you get over, you take the gig, you know.
Sweet.
Yeah, so I know you. That's what you did with the mic. You would go around, take mugs, gigs. You being the cube that you are.
We definitely took a few microphones.
Right.
Sure.
But that's what that's how the encouragement came to go to Detroit. The Spinners brought us to Detroit, and this lady, Malia, she told me that, you need to meet George Clinton. Y'all need to get together. She said George is having trouble with Eddie now because they getting so toe up with the heroin thing that they can't even get on stage and play. So she talked me into going over to meet him, and I went over to meet him, and I was standing outside. Before I went in the house, I started looking up. It's like, man, this look like the Addams Family. No, serious. I wasn't even tore up yet.
Yeah.
And I went to the door, and I knocked, and the door said, I was like, oh man, I didn't know whether to go in there or not, So as funk would have it, I stepped in the door, and it always go back to that funked up room you was talking about. Yeah, it went right there. Everything was dark. I saw the black light, going on. And then way in the back, I saw something in the corner. I didn't know what it was. It was a sheet and some chicken feet. No lie, no lie. So I'm walking in. I said, "Damn, that must be George." So I get in there, and I sit down. He's in the Buddha. He's sitting on the and he is toe up from the flow up. And I knew it. But I still wanted to talk to him and meet him and see what we could do because I knew he was connected with the studio and they were on the road traveling. So we had a conversation about him taking over the band, us as the band, and turning our name into Funkadelic, And I was like, we had been through that so much of changing our name that I was like, no, we got to keep our name. We'll be the band, but we got to keep our name. That worked for about 2 or 3 weeks tops. And the girls started talking about, that's some new Funkadelics. We was like, yeah, we knew Funkadelics. So that kind of turned over into getting rid of the name, but we became Parliament Funkadelic.
Man, amazing.
Yeah.
Thank God you went into that house. Yeah. So I'm gonna skip forward and back and forth. I want to make sure we get a chance to talk about album of the year, number one, Funketeer.
Yeah.
The new album.
Yeah.
And what I noticed on this record, you infused P-Funk and G-Funk together.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's ever been done quite like you've done it throughout a whole record. It's been done here and there, but it seemed like throughout this whole record, you get a little taste of both sides of the fence, and it's great.
It's like for me, it's like payback because of what y'all had did. When we started lagging, y'all stepped in and took the game, just took it to a whole new level. So it was like P-Funk was the foundation, but y'all took it G-Funk and took it to a whole new level.
What's your process now? Like before, you start an album. Do you constantly record, and then when you got a few of them, you say, okay, this is starting to come together, and then you start adding pieces, or do you before you even record anything, say it's album time to go?
I kind of don't play it that way. I kind of, let the universe tell me kind of what to do, kind of who should I talk to be involved, collaborate with. I usually don't have no idea until the songs start coming. And once the songs and tracks start coming, I have to be stopped, to say, okay, you got enough songs for the album. Will you please come up and eat? you know. So it's one of those kind of things where I don't know when to stop. It's just they always come. They always come. And I always have to put it down then. If I get a riff, or if I get a melody, I have to put it down. Not to say that I finish it, but I put it down and it always comes back around.
So when you say that the tracks come,
Yeah.
is that, I mean, how do you produce your tracks? Do you have a bunch of producers, or do you go in and start it off? Do people submit tracks to Bootsy?
Yeah. I've learned that, to involve others, because at one time it was just the whole household of P-Funk.
Yeah.
And that's all we used. We didn't ever step outside of that. But since that time, I've learned and got educated with using a whole lot of different other people, and it keeps me energetic because it's a new person that I'm working with, and you never know what you're gonna get. That's what the funk is. You never know what you're gonna get, and to me that's exciting because once you start knowing, that's what's wrong with us now. We know too much, so when you don't know, you funked up. And I'm funked up, and you funked up, and y'all funked up.
What's your favorite song on the album? Well, I know you. Give me your favorite 3 songs. If anybody just had to hear 3,
Okay.
which ones would you tell them to check out?
Album of the year, definitely. Pure Perfection and Bubble Pop, the one you popped up. Yeah, no, seriously, that's kicking.
I like Satellite. Satellite is a great.
Yeah.
It got a great feel.
Right.
I don't know what it is, but it's just got that feel to it.
Well, I think too, connecting with Dave Stewart, because he actually played guitar on that. Dave Stewart with the Eurythmics. Wow. He played guitar on that, and so he kind of started that track, and I just kind of finished it.
Who else have you worked on this record that we don't know? You just mentioned the name.
I got some new artists too. Myra Washington, who's people are
fan in the house.
People are getting hip to her because she goes around and do this whole Tina Turner thing, and she be killing. When you hear her,
I mean, I heard the voice.
That's her.
That's her. Okay,
that's my
yeah.
She bad.
You got another one is Alien. What is it called?
Alien Flytrap.
Alien Flytrap.
Actually, Dave is on that too.
Yeah,
he's playing. He's playing like a piano. That's weird. That's weird though. You like those? That's cool.
Yeah,
I like that.
I love the G funk, but of course I'm a traditional Bootsy fan. So I love when you go into your band.
I see you stretching out.
I love when you go into your band. Performing? Are you touring? Are you performing?
Not right now because we had so much going on with the record and production, and I tried to step out of that because physically it's well, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, and then the other thing was that 75-pound space base. I didn't realize that mug weighed 75 pounds. You know, I mean, I've been jumping around on stage. You've been 40 years. So mine is like about 55, close to 60, years of jumping around with that mug on.
Yeah.
And it takes a toll on you. I can't really imagine myself jumping around with that mug, and it's like, don't fake the funk or your nose got to grow. And I'll never fake the funk. If I can't get out there and do what I think I should be doing, I can't do it. Because I always promised the people I would never fake the funk.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna
You haven't, man. You know,
Yeah.
you've been steady.
Yeah.
And I've learned a lot from you just watching you, protect your image.
Yeah.
And really push your image.
Yeah.
And your style. And
that was back when they wasn't trying to hear us about making dolls and cartoons. We actually had to do that ourselves.
yeah.
And that's like an everyday, thing. If you ain't got that, then but we never looked at it as, something that was, hard or a curse that we couldn't get this and we couldn't get that. We just looked at it like, we got to keep banging.
Yeah.
And that's what we did.
As far as promoting, you're doing a lot of promoting of the record, though, because I see you everywhere promoting this record. Do you like to promote? I remember I seen a clip of you a long time ago.
Yeah.
You was like, man, we used to make records and have fun, and now they want us to go try to sell them? Damn.
Right. Well, what's funny about that is George and I, it was like a stage show. When we would go out and promote ourselves, that was like, we didn't even look at that as something separate. That was like, we had fun doing that. Going out talking about ourselves. Oh man. I mean, that was the extra. That was like the dessert. Going to play at all of these places, that was great. But to go talk about yourself and the experience and this, that, and the other, and be right with the fans, where you can hug them, slap five, whatever, man, you can't do that from stage. You're on the stage, you just, you're doing your thing, but you can't connect like physically with your fans. So that the record store, the radio, especially the record stores, I mean, man, we used to have such a ball just going to them and promoting the records.
Yeah. So you had fun promoting the records?
We had. Well, that was when, we had got real big.
Yeah.
That's when it was fun. Because that's the only time I think that we had to connect with people. We was so big, it was like, we had to kind of get away, but the record stores allowed us to connect,
You have a beautiful wife by the name of Patti, and she holds you down.
Where that girl at? Oh, there she is.
Can you come up here?
Come
Patti?
on up, babe.
Please come on up and just let the people see you.
Give it up, y'all. Peppermint Patti.
She's always holding him down and respect you a lot. You can sit in my seat right here. Just have a seat right here. Have a seat right here. Real quick, ask you a question or two. How is it like being Mrs. Bootsilla?
It's great, I must say. I did not know who he was when I met him, and I believe that's what he needed in his life. He told me that his name was, William, and that's what I accepted. And then 2 weeks later, he said, "You don't really know who I am, do you?" And I was like, "Well, you told me you're William, right?" And he said, "Well, my name is Bootsy." And I thought, "Well, what's a Bootsy, right?" And so he gave me a little history. So I've never been a fan. I just love him for who he is. Yeah.
But you've also been, you've been more than a wife. You've from what I see, help him keep his schedule, keep his everything moving in the right direction, keep him on point. This is what I see. Maybe I'm wrong, but I definitely see that you're a big part of his life, and you make sure that the Bootsy train is always rolling, right?
Always rolling, yeah. I used to teach aerobics, and that's how we met in the gym. So he's taught me everything. I laid that part down of my life, and he said, you can do this. So we brought everything in-house. Our daughter is actually my assistant, which is really cool. Her name is Summer. So, yeah, the two of us keep him on the straight and narrow, Ice Cube.
Great. Y'all give it up for Miss Patti. Thank you so much. Yeah, we had to give Miss Patti her props because,
Thank you, Q.
She's always on point for you. And, man, we need strong women behind us for what we do, what we need to do. To keep our heads in the right place, to keep us grounded.
Yeah.
Need strong women. So I wanted to give Patti her props. Thank you so
beautiful.
much. Tell me what a studio session is like with you. How's it go down?
We do different ways now, because back in the day it was, all of us was like live. Everything was live. You go, you record as a band.
Now you told me something before. You said whoever get to the studio first,
Yeah.
everybody had to jump on their thing.
Well, we had to learn how to do that, because everybody wanted to be at the studio first, right? But also everybody wanted to party. So you have to make a sacrifice, and I figured it out. I guess I figured it out first, because I knew I had to cut my partying off at 2:00 instead of 6:00.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And George said, whoever gets to the studio first gets it all day. So I was just on it. I was on fire. It's like, you mean you gonna let me, And so once the guys start realizing that they couldn't start a project if they ain't first there, then they start, waking up. They might do a little more drugs than they normally would, but they all started to come over. Next thing you know, but I had a track record then. By the time they woke up, my track record was huge.
and they just had to come in and get on what you was on.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
And it was a beautiful thing, because it was a lesson to all of us.
Yeah.
Because we had to stop certain things to do what we really wanted to do. And we were there for the music at that time.
Yeah.
There was another dark time, but we were actually there for the music.
So it's two concerts that are in folklore, right?
Yeah.
One of them I'm involved in. It's the Up and Smoke tour, which everybody always say, we need another Up and Smoke tour. We need another Up and Smoke tour. The other tour that I've heard since I was knee-high to a horsefly was the Funk Fest.
Yeah.
The Mothership.
Man, yeah.
How much fun did you have on that tour? What was the biggest high of the tour, and what was the biggest low of the tour?
Let me go with the biggest high, because that's what I remember most. the biggest high for me was to be able to stand under the mothership as it's coming down. You know, if you look at the videos and stuff, all looked like all the band was kind of, you know, standing right under it or close to right under it and looking up and, you know, giving the P-Funk sign, you know, and it was like a tent revival, you know, it's like the whole tent, everybody was like, you know, the one has appeared, you know, and everybody was so, at this moment, it was like so emotionally, you know, funked up, you know, and it just felt so good. You couldn't wait, like, you know, like you had to go through the show to get there. But once you get there, it's like, this is the moment I've been waiting for. Heal me, heal! You know.
Low moments.
And the low, okay. My probably worst moment, low moment that I had was when I was playing the solo on I'd Rather Be With You, and like the front of the stage here, I'm right here, I'm peeking. You know, I'm just peeking. You know, the people peeking. You know, everybody is just peeking. It's like, you know, that moment, you know, and then the lights come on. I broke a string. You talking about, because that ain't never happened to me before. I did not know what to do. Who shows up? The funk, right?
The funk.
The funk always shows up and show you what to do. So what I did was once the string broke, even you know, all the people down here, they saw it when it happened. So it was like, okay, what do we do? You know, they looking to me like, what do we do now? You know, because, you know, we were waiting for that moment, you know. What do we do? So I didn't know what to do. I was listening in my head. What do I do? It's like, go sit down on the front of the stage and change your strings, fool. You know, because when you big like that, you're supposed to have somebody to be able to come change your strings. I mean, the roadie, he started coming out. I was like, no, I'm going to do this, you know, because we had been so used to doing things ourselves. When we got to the point of hiring people to do it for us, I never understood that. It's like, you know, it's like I do this myself. I carry my own bass, you know. No. You got somebody to care for you. So I never got used to that. And so I sit down on the stage in front of everybody, no music going. I said, give me that string right there. Gave me the string. I started putting the string, and I was rocking, you know, rocking and looking at the people. No music playing. I was changing the string in front of them. That was the entertainment. I didn't know that. They was like, they thought I did that on purpose, you know. And it was like, I didn't know what to do. And I'm sitting there. I changed it. Once I got finished, I stood up. They clapped, you know. It was like, and then I started where I left off, you know.
Yeah. Oh, that's sweet.
Oh, man. Yeah. But, you know, that never happened again.
One time only.
Just one time only. And it was the moment that you know, it was almost like I feared would come, you know, and it came, and it was devastating for the moment.
So, what's the best thing about being Bootsy?
Wow, what's the best thing? The best thing is the joy, the happiness that I can bring to people. And then, you know, it ain't like I try to bring it. It ain't like I try to smile. It's like, that's what it is, you know. And God willing, it'll never change, because that's the difference. You know, I can go down and, you know, be with people instead of, you know, having a bunch of entourage around me. You know, I can just be with people like we did the other, this whole tour, this whole record tour. And when I was out doing gigs, I just go through the audience, you know, And I tell them, open up so I can get through, and y'all are my security.
Yeah.
And they said, we are your security. I say, what? Say what? We are your security.
Sweet.
And see, we used to just walk through, and they tried it the other night, and, the security really feel like they need to do their job. I had to tell them all, this just happened the other night. Don't come out here with me. I had to send them back to the stage. It's embarrassing, but we had told them before the show, don't come out. But they, doing their job, and I understand that, but I want the people to know that I trust them, and I have to know that I'm not afraid to walk out, because I'm who I am, it don't matter to me. I'm still William, Bootsy is Bootsy, Casper is Casper. Those different characters have different vibes, So when I walk out there, I'm either Casper or William, no matter what I got on.
Yeah.
I can go out here, I can go out in the street. It don't matter.
What message do you have to your fans about the funk?
Wow. Okay. The message I have to my fans about the funk is
about using the funk in their daily lives.
okay. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Wow. You know what it is we've been programmed so heavily of how to be. What I would suggest is we learn to respect each other's father. And the reason I say that is because everybody don't serve the same God. And that's one of the biggest problems we got. And I'm here to tell you, it's all right if my friend has another God and he don't serve the same one I do. It's all right. That's the funk. The funk comes in when it's like he accepts that, embrace that, because we have to respect each other regardless. And we've been programmed not to, and once you realize that, you have to start thinking about how can I get over that hump? Well, I'm going to tell you how to get over that hump. You got to give up the funk. Right? Right? Yeah. That's what it is.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. One question. How many times did George Clinton come out that mothership butt naked? I've seen it a few times. How many times?
Well, you know what? Let me give you a lead up to that, okay? When we first started doing the Funkadelic thing, we was out in Iowa somewhere, I forget, and we used to have to do this gig to get college gigs. It was like a place for auditioning, so people like promoters and people would come to see the show to see if they want to hire you for their college. So we all sit down, the management and everybody, group, the band, we all sit down and explain to George, you cannot. And George was looking as crazy because he knew where it was going. You cannot go out there naked. George was like, yeah, I know. Had his chicken feet on. I know. So, we drill that and drill that and drill that before this show, And everybody figured, okay, well, George got it. Everything's cool, So time for us to come on. We went on jamming like everybody was getting funked up. And then we started looking at each other talking about, well, where's George? Where is George? I mean, and we actually started really looking because we thought something had happened to him. And the next thing I know, way in the back, he was standing on a chair, naked as a jaybird, his hand in the air like that, and everybody turned around, and there was George. He jumped off the chair, ran through the audience, slid up on the stage, naked. So I think the mothership thing was kind of, that was on a lower level,
Yeah.
I mean, this was like, we didn't get not one gig after that show.
That's funny.
And I'll never forget that, and we'll never let George forget it either, It was funny. It was really funny, but we couldn't get no gigs after that.
Man.
Yeah.
We'd like to open up a few questions for the audience. Got a question or two right here with your hand up. Can we give them a mic? Is there another mic? Oh, there go another. Give him that mic you got, BR. Slide him that mic. Hopefully it's on. Check and see if it's on. Yeah, give it to this guy right there. Right there. BR, you my mic guy.
Check. Yay.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this tonight, you guys. Really appreciate it. Coming from my age group, I was first a fan of NWA, Cube, into, Dre stuff, which, connected with the G-Funk. Yeah. Really got into that, felt that, which then took me on, as a hungry kid who really loved music, took me backwards, learning, where that came from, the roots of that, back to P-Funk. And then finding that was so exciting as a young kid. And just really like, wow, this is so cool what they were doing, and like really loving that. My question for you, Bootsy, is what was that like for you in the 90s, hearing that G-Funk movement coming out, knowing where that came from, being a part of that? What was that like to see that take over the world and, with what they were doing, coming off of that?
They actually blessed us so much because, we knew, well, personally, I knew that we had burned out, because we had put something before the music, and we started going downhill, and it was like, I'm just praying that somebody would come and save us, because we can't save ourselves from this, and sure enough, Cube now, NWA, Eazy-E, they came through with We Want Easy, right?
We Want Easy, yeah.
We Want Easy.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe, like, it's like, wow, some young cats is out here doing our stuff. That to me was amazing, and when we met, it was like, man, thank y'all, man. Thank y'all. It was such a blessing.
Easy was so amazed that you would even let him use the record. Yeah. I mean, once, you said yes.
Yeah.
Man, he came back. He was like, man, Bootsy said, yeah, man, I talked to Bootsy. Boy, you couldn't tell him shit, and then at the end of the video, were you at the end of the video? Right. Man, he was over the moon because he was such a big fan. And, that record, we was doing underground hardcore records that would never get us the light of day.
Right.
But We Want Easy is the first record that started to get us, known. Recognized, more than on an underground level. So
wow.
Thank you so much for letting us use that big hit for us, man. Took us from the underground to the overground.
That's happening.
Hi, Mr. Collins.
Hey.
Is it true you also played drums on some P-Funk stuff?
Oh, yeah. It's probably too many for me to remember, but yeah, pretty much all the hits,
Oh, shit. Yeah. Did you know this, Cube?
Did you know? That'll cover it. But I think what it was drummers, or our drummers was into just drums. I mean, and they'd play them to death. They were live drummers that played live in the studio, and it's a difference. When you come to the studio, it's another mindset. You just got to lock in on the beat. On stage you kind of show out and lock in. So when you come to the studio, one of them got to go. But drummers in their head, they got to be what they are. And so George heard that, and he would say, "No, Bootsy should play the drums on that." So that's what I did. Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Let's see here. Oh, okay. Can we get the microphone?
Hi,
Yes.
hi, Mr. Collins.
Yeah.
My name's David Siegel. Love your music,
Thank
and
you.
and I've been a big fan for a long time. I saw you a few years back downtown, L.A. Bernard Purdy was playing drums.
Oh,
that night.
yeah. That was
And,
beautiful.
Yeah, I was there with Jerry Poindexter, who says hi, and
Uh-huh.
also Mousy Thompson say hi.
Mousy. Oh, man.
I spoke to him today. I saw you back in New York, I believe in '74 at the Manhattan Center.
Yeah.
That was my first James Brown show.
Wow.
And then I saw, you with P-Funk. And anyway, I just want to say thank you for all your music. And could you talk about the one, like what playing on the one beat
Yeah,
at all?
yeah.
And that concept?
You say, did I talk about it?
No, I said, can you talk
He wants
about
you to talk
Oh.
about
Oh, yeah,
it a
if there's
little bit.
anything just to
Okay.
add. You
What
say
does
about
the one mean to
the
you?
one. Yeah.
Okay. The one to me now means something different. But when James Brown was teaching it to us, it meant you played hard on the first beat of every, measure, every bar, So it went like, one, one. So it's like, we want the funk. Give up the funk. We need the funk. Come on.
Gotta have that funk.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. That's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got a question in the back. Few people in the back there. Let's try to.
Yeah.
I don't want to just, I want
Good
this
evening.
to back seat.
Thank you both so much. In my life, Bootsy, you've been there forever. I remember being a little girl, not supposed to be like peeking out of the back room for the dog party. Then I remember being in my age range in NWA. So then we had our own parties, and now the
Yeah.
little kids are into you through cartoon depictions of you.
Wow.
So my question is, in 2025, words like trending or influencer or influential are super big,
Yeah.
and that's something you have naturally done throughout your whole career. What do you think the future of music and specifically funk is?
Wow. I think it's going to be different. I think it's going to be, like when we were coming up, we had a choice to kind of pick our sounds and experiment with our sounds because we could manually do things. But the way it's setting up now and towards the future, especially with the AI thing coming in, it's like everything is going to be preset already. It's like you get whatever you get, somebody else got, So having your own sound is going to be very difficult. And it looks like to me, it's going to be, if you got an Ice Cube voice, that's what's going to make it different. If you got a Snoop Dogg voice, that's what's going to make it different. The music as a whole is going to be more preset already. So when you buy it, and you buy a little piece here, a little piece there, the difference is going to be the piece you use as opposed to how unique the sound is. Because everybody's going to be hip to those sounds, and that's where the money is at. When you get people programmed to that sound, and that's what's important nowadays. Originality, it ain't really about that. It's like money don't count. People do. That's my feeling. But that's going out the window because the people don't really count now. It's more about the numbers, and that's where it's all headed. And so just get ready, and don't be mad because ain't nobody gonna be able to stop it, So there you have it. Thank you.
Can we go over here real quick?
Hello to you both. It's so great. It's just an honor to be in the room with the both of you. Mr. Cube, I'm born and raised in South Central, so it's just, again, an honor to be in the room.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And Mr. Collins, I have a question for you. Your style is obviously like one of one, and you've inspired so many people. And so I'm just so curious to know, like, what's the story behind maybe your favorite article of clothing in your closet, and what is that item?
Oh my God. Wow, that's a deep question. Wow. I tell you how I look at clothing and fashion, and visually, I look at this whole thing, this body, or your body, is an instrument. I play space bass, but that ain't my only instrument. I wear whatever I wear is part of my instrument that speaks to people, and it tells them what kind of person I am. What you wear tells people what kind of person you are. Body language, all of this stuff that as human beings, we lost it somewhere. The animals still got theirs. We kind of lost our, but this whole frame is an instrument that we communicate, and we lost sight of each other. And the whole thing now is, how do we get that back? It ain't just about what a person got on. It's what that person is saying with what he got on, So that's what we got to cue in on. And I hope I answered the question.
Sweet.
All right.
Looks like we've come to the end of this cool little sit down. I want to thank everybody for coming out. Stand up, give Bootsy a round of applause, please. The incredible Bootsy Collins. We want to thank the GRAMMY Museum for having us.
Yes.
And thank you all for coming, spending your evening with us, your Friday night with us. Pick up the album of the year.
Yeah.
Number one Funketeer.
Number one.
You will not be disappointed.
Hey, hey.
My man Bootsy. Yeah.
Thank you, Q. Give it up. Give it up for Ice Cube. Ice Cube. Hey. On the one, baby. God bless. Thank you for the mother.